what I was talking about is I have I guess you could say tutored a number of interns in water quality, and the example that I use is a local project, and that project goes from an area that is almost unimpacted. So it's a pristine, nearly pristine state of a series of lakes called the chain of lakes. These chain of lakes flow into Lake Henrietta via Lake what's the name of the lake? It's the Indian princess, Hiawatha, Lake Hiawatha. Goes from the chain of lakes through Lake Hiawatha into Lake Butler through a wetland series, where inside that wetland system, it picks up a series of ditches that come from downtown Tallahassee. So our stormwater, and the difference between stormwater and sewage or sewage treatment is very specific. Stormwater is water flows into a pipe and goes downstream. Right. No treatment. The outfall of stormwater goes to a creek somewhere.
Right.
From the chain of lakes through Hiawatha, through Lake Bradford, down into this wetland system where it picks up the stuff from the city of Tallahassee, there is a distinct change in water quality. So when we look at the chain of lakes, it's got a really nice water quality. It's very obvious. The plant spectrum is very unique. It's not overgrown as far as vegetation along its outside edges that might indicate a high nutrient content. The plant species and herbaceous and shrub species are very indicative of a natural system and very indicative of a good and high water quality. When it flows through Hiawatha and into Bradford, it stays somewhat similar. There is an impact. But after it comes out of Bradford and goes into a wetland system, like Black Pond or something, is where it picks up the creeks, the ditches that come from downtown Tallahassee. The water quality distinctly degrades. In an effort to treat that water, the city of Tallahassee created a stormwater pond now called Lake Hiawatha. No, I'm sorry, Lake Henrietta.
Lake Henrietta. Oh.
Lake Henrietta. Lake Henrietta is a stormwater pond by design. When we look at the difference specifically between Henrietta and the chain of lakes, it will be dramatic. The chain of lakes, I can stand there knee deep in the water and you can see my feet. It'll look like tea, like you're looking through them through tea, but you can see my feet. There'll be some tannic acids in the water that kind of like tea, but those are organic and natural. By the time you get down to Henrietta, I ain't stepping in that stuff. You can see a literal filter system designed by the city to capture the floating garbage that's going into it. There is a high quantity of vegetation that is indicative of a high nutrient content throughout the edges and even into the center of the lake. It's specifically different when you look at it from a vegetative and water, obvious visual water quality standard from what we'll look at over there at the chain of lakes. Lake Henrietta is a link that goes to Lake Monroe. The Munson Slough is a channel that was built way back when, in the 40s, I believe, but it might have been later. I don't know the dates exactly, to help drainage from the city when they weren't really thinking about the water quality. Lake Munson, we'll go to Lake Munson and look at the water quality at Lake Munson. It is distinctly different than the water quality at the chain of lakes. So what I'm saying, very straightforward, is when we have very little impact on the water quality and it's in its natural state, it's of a certain water quality. Once we add all of the concentrated property by property, location by location, individual by individual impacts via some stormwater drainage systems to a surface water, they are compounded and the water quality drops significantly. Henrietta is a great example of that. Monroe is a natural lake that used to get the water from the city of Tallahassee directly. It is an excellent example of that. We'll stand over the spillway at Monroe and look at the water quality and go, oh my God. The difference between the chain of lakes, you can go there and go, I could probably drink that. You'll look at the outfall from Lake Monroe and go, oh my, I wouldn't put my foot in that. And there's people that fish in that.
That's just nice.
So, I mean, the dramatic difference between the inflow of pollutants from a whole city to the water versus prior to that inflow is so obvious that it makes the point that our individual efforts to not have an impact on water quality is significant. If we each try to limit our negative impact to the water quality through simple methods, then those areas like Lake Monroe and Lake Henrietta might not have been needed, but it is right now. Lake Monroe is degraded, unfortunately. You know what's downstream from Lake Henrietta or Lake Monroe? Wakulla Springs.
Ooh. Popular
The Gulf of Mexico. So we've got high industry for aquaculture. We also have high industry for parks, recreation. If we don't treat our water upstream and take care of our own responsibility upstream, those areas downstream have a legitimate concern and gripe and potential legal problem with how we're dealing with what our own stuff is. And we can have an impact on that on a one-on-one basis by not having a negative impact or trying to decrease our negative impact on the water quality.